F1. Red flag, so slow down. What?
The checkered flag is waiting.
I can see our Checkered Flag podcast being quite spicy.
5 Live's Checkered Flag podcast.
Verstappen makes it 17 for the season as he wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. I'm Jenny Gow. Beside me is Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, and Alice Powell, W Series race winner. And Harry, it didn't start well. It actually started with a crash and then the long red flag, but it ended in style.
It did, actually, with a long, boring bit in the middle.
Let's brush over that. No one at home needs to know about
It's
that.
going to be the shortest podcast ever.
No,
it was great, bye.
Yeah, a drama before we even, while we were on the formation lap, Charles Leclerc, suddenly we're showing pictures of him in the wall, reporting of a hydraulic issue, couldn't even start the race. He was supposed to start alongside Verstappen. What could have been had Leclerc got a good start
Not a lot.
into turn one? Probably not a lot, exactly. Then the big crash that involved Albon and the two Hasses really encroaching in on each other. Hulkenberg the sandwich as Magnussen pulled over, and that was the end of Magnussen and Albon's race. Red flag straight away. And it was about 3 laps that were officially confirmed. But it was a great start for Lando Norris, who managed to get up into second as well. So it was hard to keep track of anything. A hectic opening few laps. Then we got to settle down with that red flag. But it never quite came until the very end, the Sao Paulo magic, in my opinion. And that magic came from Fernando Alonso, who was absolutely sublime. The best Alonso we've seen in a very long time, and he's been pretty good this year, fighting for that third place with Perez.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Alice Powell, what did you think of the start, the first start? Because obviously Leclerc couldn't take it. He'd already crashed out. But what did you think of it as a whole?
I think Lando, wow, he got such a great launch. It's a shame, actually, he didn't get that repeat that launch on the second start. But he did a great job. That incident that we had between Magnussen and Albon that eventually brought out the red flag on lap 3, that was Magnussen's fault. So he basically tried to almost squeeze his teammate a little bit. Hulkenberg was in the middle there. Albon was on the right-hand side of Hulkenberg. Magnussen didn't know he was there, and the stewards said it was a racing incident at the end of the day. I said on air, well, it's Magnussen's fault, which it was. If he didn't move across, then the incident wouldn't have happened. He obviously had contact with his teammate, spun across into Albon. Really unfortunate. But I thought, wow, this is looking good, because Lando looks racy. He's got this excellent start, launch off the line. And actually, so did, I think it was Lewis Hamilton as well, that got a great launch on the 2 Aston Martins. So I was quite excited by that first
The race
start.
that could have been.
Who knows?
It's been a weird weekend in Sao Paulo, because we've had such different conditions almost every day. Go back to Friday and that torrential thunderstorm, essentially, that put an early end to Q3, but the drivers were struggling out on the track even before the rain came. It was like it was raining, but it wasn't, was how some of the drivers described it. And it's all pinpointed, it seems, at the Pirelli tyres for this weekend that had just not quite delivered in a way that I think was expected. The medium tyre and the soft tyre, the favoured for use this weekend, and the soft stable and fast, and the medium not performing to its usual or to its expected standard. And that's really put the cat among the pigeons about what strategy people can go on, because we've seen traditionally the likes of Ferrari struggling with tyres and heating them up. Russell and the Mercedes in the last couple of rounds also struggling to manage issues and keep tyre temps up. And it showcased itself in huge disparities in performance from one day to the next. AlphaTauri suddenly nowhere on Friday, but then suddenly coming alive throughout the rest of the weekend. Equally the same can be said. I know they've been trying to get to grips with their upgrades as well. But Aston Martin suddenly coming to back up front again, which is brilliant to see, and really getting in the mix. Verstappen away and well, that was always expected. But it's been a weird weekend, and because it's a sprint, we only had the one practice, so that has left us with all these questions that needed to be answered. And in the end, I think it culminated in a little bit of a disappointment for Sao Paulo, because for the majority of that race, we didn't get much of anything. It was a tyre management race, with some managing better than others.
Yeah, it ended Verstappen as P1, then Norris, Alonso, Perez just outside the podium positions, Stroll, Sainz, Gasly, Hamilton, Tsunoda and Ocon, and then outside the points, Sargent, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo, Piastri, and then there are a whole host, a gaggle of non-finishers as well. We'll come to that because it was a race of attrition. But let's hear from our race winner once again, 17. It's Max Verstappen.
Hi, Max. I mean, it looked tough at the beginning when Lando pushed you, but after that, just went off into the distance and another great victory. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I think for like every stint, the first half of it, Lando was doing the same lap times as me. But it was always the last 5 to 10 laps where it seemed like we had a little bit more pace than McLaren today, and we could extend our gap a little bit all the time. So that was definitely positive for us today. But he gave it a good run. I mean, that lap where I had to defend, it was close that he got by me. But I think then also Lando realized, I have to save my tires to make sure that we make it to the end of the stint in the best possible way.
He seems to be your closest challenger at the moment. You guys are constantly going toe-to-toe now. I mean, what's it like to go up against him, and do you look forward to that more in the future?
Yeah, but I'm not surprised. I know how good Lando is, and it's nice to see him there. He deserves that as well. McLaren deserves that, and hopefully we'll have many more battles.
And also, lastly, 52nd win of your career. You now go fourth by yourself, ahead of Alain Prost. I mean, each week it seems to be a new record that you're breaking. You and your team must be enjoying this run at the moment.
Yeah, it's just like you said, enjoying the moment, and hopefully, to the end of the year we can add 1 or 2 more.
I know we've spoken about Verstappen time and time again. Was this his cleanest win, Harry?
Oh,
that's a question.
I don't know if it was his cleanest win. I mean, he's had a couple of, a fair few lights to flag victories, and when you've got no one in front of you, you can remain fairly clean in terms of lap one. But I think there were times in that race when Norris in the McLaren, who's again been looking so quick, particularly over one lap pace, at one point looked like he was catching Verstappen, especially in the opening stages of the weekend, and actually throughout and towards the end of the Grand Prix, setting fastest lap and just chipping away at that about 5-second gap between Verstappen and Norris. But I think Verstappen was cruising, to be honest, towards the end. Now, it gave us a bit of hope, but in terms of was it his cleanest race, I don't think I could say it was. It was certainly a flawless race from him, but he doesn't have any competition, and this is actually the thing that impresses me more and more. I go back to Lewis Hamilton winning his championships with Mercedes and beating Nico Rosberg in 2014 and 2015. And it got to a point in both of those seasons where Hamilton had won the title, and then it almost seemed like he had switched off, and suddenly Rosberg was winning the races, and Rosberg then went on a run of winning the last few races of I think 2015 and continuing that form into 2016, which of course became his championship winning year. Compare that to Verstappen, and he has not switched off. He is, if anything, the win means more and more to him, no matter what, even when the titles are sealed.
I think in terms of cleanest win, I mean, I can barely count to 17. So just like Harry.
Or 52 if we're talking total.
So I would say he didn't have only that one lap, really. Was he really properly challenged? I think his win out in the USA Grand Prix in Austin was probably better because he had brake issues, and he had pressure from not just Lando. He also had pressure from Lewis Hamilton as well. Okay, Lewis was eventually disqualified, but we didn't know that was going to happen during the race and at the time. So I would say that it's hard to say was it his cleanest win. It was just another great display from Max. I said on air, and I'll say it again, he is in the best car. He's in a fantastic car built by and designed by the fantastic Adrian Newey, but he's still got to do the job. And, we can only really compare him to his teammate, Perez, who, of course, finished in 4th place, did start a lot further down the grid than Max. But, I don't need to say his performance compared to Perez this season, do I?
No. 524 points is Max Verstappen's current tally. Probably get a bit higher, I'm expecting.
Why, what are you trying to say? Is he going to win more?
Maybe. Second place, it was Lando Norris. And we've already spoken about his launch for the first start. I thought he was really impressive today. I know a lot of people would have voted him their driver of the day.
I think he might have actually got driver of the day.
I can't remember. My driver of the day was Alonso, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I would say mine's Alonso. But no, Lando still did a great job. We thought, hang on a second, lap, was it 4, 5 maybe, that he challenged for the race win. And then he sort of just dropped off a little bit. Some inconsistent times there, clearly struggling with degradation, which is what we expected from what we saw yesterday with the McLaren. But still, he did a great job. And he'll still be frustrated. I'm sure he's happy to get that podium, which of course he will be, but he wants that race win, doesn't he? So will it happen this season? I mean, like I said, Vegas, maybe, who knows? It's going to be cold temperatures there, so there's still a chance for him yet, but I'm sure deep down he's still quite frustrated. He keeps finishing sort of 2nd, 3rd. That's his 7th podium of the year as well.
Do you think it is going to happen for Lando Norris at some stage? Because unfortunately for him, he's now in an era where Max Verstappen and Red Bull are superior, and the reliability isn't even an issue either for Verstappen. Could Lando Norris become this generation's Nick Heidfeld and constantly getting podiums without a win?
No, Lando will get a win. He will definitely get a win at some point, and that will just be an incredible. I can hear the radio message from Lando Norris, that little high-pitched voice that he puts on when he's super excited. He will get it, and we still have Vegas. No one's been there before. It's a new track. No one knows what to expect. Okay, they laser scan the circuit, so they'll have the aid of the simulators to learn and to prepare for the race weekend. But it's the conditions that we're potentially going to be faced in the desert, with expected temperatures when the race is on, anywhere between sort of 5 to 7 to 10 degrees.
Lovely.
That's cold. That is chilly. They were 20 degrees today, so that's going to be a big difference. I think actually Lando said that he's going to take some hand warmers with him. So even he's preparing. So I'll be taking my woolly hat and coat. Thank you very much.
Are you going to pack hand warmers?
Maybe. I've got one of those ones that you can put in hot water, so I might take one of those, yeah.
Nice.
Or just go and ask to borrow Lando's.
I don't know why he's taking those. He can just wrap himself around the tyre blankets.
You can do, but I tell you what, when you are driving in cold weather, it's cold.
You can't put those in your gloves.
No, he won't be able to. He could do the old karting trick where you put sort of those plastic latex gloves on underneath, but I'm sure that's definitely not allowed in Formula 1. But trust me, from the times where I've spent at Brands Hatch driving at 5 degrees, it's your toes get a bit chilly and so do your hands.
Let's hear from Lando Norris.
Hi Lando, P2 today. You keep saying that you don't have the performance this weekend and you deliver a trophy for your team. You must be driving really well right now. How are you feeling?
No, I mean, honestly, the performance has been there all weekend. We messed up qualifying on Friday, but every other opportunity we've had, qualifying yesterday, the race yesterday, and again the race today, we've done, I think, as good as we could always have done. So I'm very happy. A lot of points, 2 more podiums. Not enough to win. Max is still just always that little bit too far ahead for us, but I'm still really happy with the whole weekend.
You have 2 more chances to get him. Is there any chance you can get Vegas, Abu Dhabi?
I have no clue on the next few tracks. We've performed better here than I was expecting, and I think as a team we were all expecting, which is again a very good positive for us, that we're performing at tracks which shouldn't be so good for us. But Vegas is a question mark for everyone, so I'm looking forward to it.
So that's Lando Norris finishing in 2nd place. And actually, he posted a really nice photo of himself saying 2 world champions and me, with obviously Verstappen and Alonso, and he with his 2nd place trophy. So that was really nice from him. Norris, I think his time will come, despite what you say, Harry. And I think we all hope.
I do think it will come. I just, I want to poke that question in there only because, he 13th career podium finish ties with Nick Heidfeld for the most without winning. So that's why I got the number.
Oh, I see.
That's why. But I think it's different generations and also
backtracking.
No, me backtracking never. But I do think it will come. It's just I'm now thinking ahead to next year, right?
But if you look at how McLaren started this year,
that is very true.
If they start with the same intention and intensity that they have at the moment, then surely it's only a matter of time until he does get a race win.
They are the second best team. Norris is the second best car right now and has been over the last couple of races. The Formula One is a development race, and McLaren have won that in terms of start to where you finish. It will come for Lando Norris. I hope it comes for Lando Norris because what a day that will be. We all remember Russia a few years ago and the heartbreak that was. And right now he is doing everything he can. He said himself this P2 was the best he could hope for.
Well, the race left the best until last, and so will we. We'll come back to talk about Alonso and Perez and their battle after this short break. Welcome back to the Checkered Flag podcast post-Brazil and the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Alongside me, Jenny Gow, is Harry Benjamin and Alice Powell. And the talk of the town will be Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez and their battle for third place. And it was immense.
It was immense is one way to describe it. It was the best part of the race. I mean, they saved the best till last.
The only part of the race.
It was the only part of the race, yeah. It was great. And Fernando, I mean, what a genius. Say he's a genius. He's more clever. He really used his experience there to try and make sure that, A, he was getting those exits and he was making sure he was safe within the DRS. But to then, when he did lose the place on it was the last lap, wasn't it? Or the second to last lap, to Perez, he was so clever. He almost sort of forced Perez to defend because if Perez didn't, he was just going to chuck it down the inside and he probably wouldn't have made the corner. Perez did defend and he managed to then cleverly get a nice and neat and tidy line through turn one, did Fernando, enter the DRS detection zone right behind Perez, who, bearing in mind, was on a slightly tighter line. And then, of course, he sailed past him down into turn four. He thought about that. He would have been planning that move, I can guarantee you, from turn 11, turn 12. And that's what you need to do. And that's why Fernando is so good and uses his experience, is he's planned that move in such a short space of time, so far ahead. And genius. And what a great move. And he got a very, very well-deserved podium out of it.
This was Alonso at his absolute best, working out how to hold off a quicker car through, as you were describing, Alice, some clever driving, and Perez not being able to work out how to get through for, a good few laps, well over 5, approaching 10, that battle was going on for. And then even when Perez got through and you think, okay, it was a good run, penultimate lap, Alonso's going to run out of time to even try this, and he's probably going to fall back now because the Red Bull is a faster car than the Aston Martin. Even when all hope was lost, Alonso does it on the line. Half a tenth the gap as they came across the line in a sensational battle, probably one of the best battles we've actually had all season long. And with that, it has wider implications as well. The morale that it puts back into the Aston Martin team, who have had a shocker over the second half of the season, really, considering where they started in terms of development. It puts Alonso back up into fourth in the drivers' standings, and Stroll, let's not forget Stroll, top 5 finish as well. So all round, very good job from Aston Martin. But Alonso, it's a pleasure to even be able to witness that at his age.
Let's hear from Fernando Alonso.
Congratulations, Fernando. A great performance from you and your team this weekend. But that fight at the end with the Checo, he called it enjoyable. How was it for you? Take us inside the cockpit.
Yeah, it was just intense. I mean, for me, it was a little bit easier, let's say, until the last 5 laps. I thought that I had everything under control, but then when I started pushing 5 laps to the end, he was even closer. So I didn't understand why his pace was coming from. And 2 laps before the checkered flag, he overtook me. I thought everything was done by that moment. But in the last lap, I had another chance and I went for it, and very close to the line. So very aggressive moves, a lot of respect, and I'm happy that it was with Checo and we could put a good show.
Put on a good show, but you also delivered a trophy for your team. First time since Zandvoort, that's got to feel really, really good after a few experimental weekends.
Yeah, it was tough. I think the last few months we had some difficulties on finding the pace and also with the car direction as well. But it seems that now we understood a few things on the setup, few things also on the car, and this is for the team because they've been putting a lot of work to understand this package, and today's result is a boost for everyone.
Does that bode well for Vegas and Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, definitely. I think after the last two events we were a little bit down, a little bit concerned about this final part of the season, and now we cannot wait to go to Vegas, so this is a good energy.
And there was a lovely moment when they were talking to the media and Alonso and Perez actually went over and shook each other's hands, and there was a genuine warmth there, because no doubt about the independent relationships that they all have. When two of these legendary drivers go into battle, they have the respect to actually say, you know what, you did a really good job. And I think they both did a really good job.
Yeah, you can't take it away from Perez, who started, okay, let's take out Charles Leclerc in the equation, because of course he didn't actually start the race, but started in 8th place, or was 8th on the grid. He did a great job to make his way up through the traffic. He didn't get the best of starts, I don't think. He got caught up behind the Mercedes. Everyone I can hear already say, yeah, but he's in the fastest car, he should breeze past. But, you know, it's not quite that simple. You've got to try and overtake. I've been really harsh on Perez, you know, and quite blunt in saying that he's had an absolutely dire season. He's made some absolutely horrendous mistakes. But today, he did a good job. Yeah, he was sort of sold the dummy a little bit by Alonso. That was just clever driving by Alonso. But still, it's a solid job for Perez. And out of sort of the last races that he's had, it was probably one of his better races, I would say. That's safe to say. And he's actually racked up, you know, good points in his battle between him and Lewis Hamilton. He scored 18 points today, this weekend, and he's only scored 21 points in the previous sort of 5 Grand Prix. So it certainly has been a very good weekend if you look at that stat. Yeah,
he can now clinch runner-up in Vegas next time around if he has another similarly competitive weekend. It's what he needed. Although, was that the race for the second Red Bull seat at the end of that lap, with all those rumours coming into this weekend? You never know. No, I think Perez has got that seat if he continues to perform that way. 32 points clear now of Lewis Hamilton, which is what he needed to do. He needed a simple, clean weekend, and he didn't just have that. He was competitive, and he showed some great racecraft as well, because as you mentioned, the warmth between Alonso and Perez, that was a clean fight, and it was again, nice to see.
There at times I thought it was going to spill over and maybe Perez would put a foot wrong and just lose it, but actually that was the measure of that race and that battle, because they both kept it clean. And I'm sure Perez will be kicking himself that he, as you say, he kind of bought the dummy. He couldn't defend for that last bit. And on the line, I mean, the Aston Martin guys in the garage, they didn't know whether he got it or not. They were beside themselves looking at the timing screen to just see, oh, yep, it's definitely done. It's definitely third, yeah.
Photo finish. I had a last-minute panic because when I thought, oh, hang on, wait, who did get third in the end? It was that close, and the joy that brings is fantastic. I know 2023 is going to go down in the history books for what Verstappen's achieved, but it's not been the most entertaining of seasons, let's be honest. But everyone will remember that. Sao Paulo and the fight for third.
I'll ask you this time next year. What happened last year?
I don't remember what happened last week.
Stroll as well, just making it even better for Aston Martin, finishing in 5th place. Carlos Sainz, a lone Ferrari, finishing 6th. And I think we have to get into the Ferrari debate of what's going on, because Alice, you pointed out, it's not the first time that they've had a car not start in the last few races.
Yeah, so Leclerc obviously, at first when we saw it, I thought, oh no, Charles, have you just spun off warming up your tyres? And that's what it looked like at first until we got that radio message through him saying, I've got a hydraulic failure, guys, which caused him to obviously lose the rear, spin off into the tyre barriers. He did sort of get out and pull the car off to a safe place. But yeah, Ferrari have lost a car before the start twice in the last 4 Grand Prix. Obviously, Qatar was Carlos Sainz. I think it was a fuel leak or fuel failure. So there always seems to be something with Ferrari. They do a good job. You know, they get themselves on the front row, but then there always seems to be something that happens, whether it be Sainz was on the radio, wasn't he, saying, wait, we need to sort this clutch out. And his engineer was like, OK, let's not discuss this now, please. And again, there's a bit of tension there in the air. But it just seems, whether they have a bad pit stop, tyre deg's bad, the driver struggles to get off the line for whatever reason, or the car breaks down. It just seems to be one of those things that hinders their race and scoring the maximum points that they're able to achieve.
Fred Vasseur went in as team principal at the beginning of this year to steady the ship, to act as a guide for Charles Leclerc and keep him at Ferrari. Is it too fast to expect him to have had an overall remedy for that team? Should he have actually been able to steady the ship by now?
I think when that question was posed as well at the start of the season, I think everybody's saying we can't judge until the earliest halfway through the year. But you've got to remember that Ferrari is Ferrari, and they have a unique way of doing things. And Fred Vasseur is a brilliant character to have in the paddock as well. And that is a breath of fresh air for Ferrari as well. He's funny, he's laid back, he's relaxed, and he's very successful as well in his junior career, in junior Formula, as well as then stepping into Formula One. It's a bit of a lot of jobs in Formula 1 seem a bit like poison chalices, but Ferrari team principal is probably up on that list as well. I think still it is too early. I think next year is when you can start to judge Fred Vasseur, because of the nature of this season. Look, the Ferrari car is clearly fast, but reliability at the moment is slightly worrying. I think Sainz did a good job today, actually, to bring that car and get some crucial points. I think there's about 20 points between Mercedes and Ferrari.
He has dropped behind, no, Sainz was dropped behind Fernando and Norris in the Drivers' Championship.
But he's dropped behind, but crucially, he outscored the Mercedes cars, and for a long while it was 2v1, 2 for Mercedes, 1 for Ferrari, until Russell dropped out in the closing stages of the race. And I think Ferrari have got a good lineup as well. Sainz's consistency and has the brain of an engineer, which can be very useful. Look at Singapore and that mastermind of a win with the DRS. Leclerc, I think, has we've discussed this before, can be maybe a bit emotional when it comes to going all in for a win, or it's nothing in the end, and that can have its uses. But I think together they make a good lineup. Ferrari next year, long story short, is when you can start to judge Fred Vasseur. But it's not that far away, is it?
No, I know.
No, not next year, world champions.
Every time we get to this stage of the season, we
go
gonna
win.
Ferrari next year, and then Ferrari next year. No. On that Sainz thing as well, he did score, but as you say, outscored by those around him. So it's Alonso, Harry, don't get too excited. Alonso on 198 points, Norris on 195, and Sainz on 192. The battle for 4th is on fire, Harry.
Well, can we also talk about the battle for 7th in the Constructors?
No, it might be too much for everyone. People at home are expiring from all this drama. So let's not talk about that right now. And we'll move on. It was Pierre Gasly in 7th place, and then Hamilton in 8th. And Russell was another one who had to retire from the race. He had problems with the temperature, which meant an imminent failure could be impending. So a bad weekend, I think, for Mercedes. And I don't know anyone who would argue the opposite.
I mean, yeah, Hamilton finished P8. The lone Mercedes out there in the end. His worst Interlagos finish in the hybrid era, and yeah, that's got to be Mercedes' worst result of the season. It's pretty dire for them, and they struggled in the sprint race yesterday. They made a couple of changes that were allowed to within those Parc Fermé regulations. They hoped that would have made a difference. Clearly, it didn't. And of course, George was on the radio numerous times throughout the race wanting to get past Lewis because he felt he had the pace, and then that didn't happen. They both dropped down the field, and then George had to retire in the end.
Well, let's listen to both of the Mercedes men, starting with Lewis Hamilton.
I mean, I generally feel okay. It is what it is, so you just have to suck it up. But I got a lot of support from the fans this weekend, which really, really made my weekend. But yeah, the car just wasn't happy this weekend. So and I don't know why. We have a lot of work to do to try and figure it out.
Do you have, I know you say you don't know why, but do you have sort of a feeling of why? Because the last couple of weekends have been really good for you guys, but it just seems like this one, was it track specific? Do you have any sort of like inkling why?
I do, but can't tell you just yet. We'll have to go and look into the data.
Hi George, unfortunate end to what's been a really tough weekend. Can you tell us more about why you had to retire the car?
Yeah, we had a cooling problem that we couldn't get under control for the last 20 laps. I had no influence on our lack of performance. Really strange weekend. Probably by far the slowest weekend of our year. So we need to understand why, because we had quite high expectations into this weekend.
As you said, you had high expectations coming into this weekend. The form has been really good.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of what went wrong this weekend?
I mean, we can only really put it down to tyres, because the car's the same as what we've had for the past 4 or 5 races, where we've arguably been fighting for victory in some of those races, or had a car potentially capable of victory. And here, if it wasn't for a great start, we'd have both been outside the points.
I think it's obvious that the debrief will be full and thorough, and Toto Wolff will be there to lead the way.
Yeah, and I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that
Wouldn't
debrief.
we all?
Because although ultimately, yes, Russell retired, for a long time in that race, he was behind Hamilton and he was faster than his teammate. And he was clearly signalling to the team, both over the team radio and also just by showcasing his pace and how he had the advantage over his teammate, that they should swap those two drivers around. And Hamilton at the time, I think, I think Stroll was ahead of him at the time, and Russell could have closed in on Stroll and given Mercedes something to fight with, and that could have played the team game both ways, because if Hamilton was struggling, then Russell could have started to move away, but keep Hamilton within that DRS, drag Hamilton along with him, and keep the Ferrari of Sainz, who was closing at a rapid rate of knots, behind him. And then at one stage, if Hamilton can't keep up, then you have to sacrifice and go, right, Russell, you go for it. If you can get Stroll, get him, and you just get as high up in this race as possible. I am no strategist, but I think that's the call Mercedes should have made earlier on. And the call never came. At least we never heard it on team radio. And Russell was asking for it. And if I was Russell, I would be annoyed that was the case. Ultimately, none of it matters because he retired. But I still think that was a Mercedes strategy call that aired on the wrong side, Alice, no?
Yeah, I think possibly they wouldn't have been so vulnerable to Sainz behind that was charging up through. I think it was Sainz. Did you say it was Sainz? I can't remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah, the Ferrari
in the race now. But if they swapped him through, he would have then dragged probably Lewis along. Russell was sat in the dirty air for a long time, so his tyres sort of cooked, and that's why he was on the radio saying, "Look, guys, I'm faster. Let's try and work together." It didn't happen. I'm sure there'll be lessons learned there for Mercedes.
You hope so, but 12 months ago, this was one of Mercedes and George Russell's best tracks, and Lewis Hamilton for that matter as well. Of course, he's gone well here over so many years, and they were riding high and looking forward to the off-season, and then they took a wrong development turn, and we got what we got with the W14, of which everybody in Mercedes is very happy to see the back of. But 12 months later, where we are now, and the performance they've just had, yes, there will be things learned, but I think there's going to be some scratching of heads. And this is crunch time as you start to go into the off-season and start developing your car. Well, you're already full on into development, so you're starting to think, well, hang on, why suddenly is our car, where it has been okay, better in recent times? They're by no means happy with it, but they've got that car faster than it was at the start of the year. I think it's worrying for Mercedes at this time to have the performance they've just had.
This is a bit of an outlier. Alice, I'm looking at you clutching straws. I mean, it's it's odd that they've had such a poor weekend in relation to where they've been for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it is, and they almost seem puzzled as to why. They will obviously have a debrief. We've got a weekend off or a week off, but the team will certainly, all teams will be diving into the data and analysing to see what it's gone wrong before they head to Vegas and to try and make sure that it doesn't happen again. But yeah, it's been bizarre because we thought, yeah, here Mercedes are on the up with a couple of good results that they've had recently with Lewis, but yeah, that just shows how things can turn quite quickly in Formula One.
And things will continue to turn in Formula One because it's Vegas next. We've all said it's going to be cold. But I think in general, the whole world is waiting to see what Vegas will offer and if F1 can succeed where it hasn't before.
Yeah, I think F1 has pretty much taken over the Las Vegas Strip. It's going to be a brilliant sight, I think, and a spectacle to behold that definitely transcends what the racing is there for. It's not just the sport that weekend. It's going to be being in Vegas as a whole. And is that actually going to be at the detriment of some of the racing that we're going to see? Street track, tight and twisty, very fast, similar to Saudi Arabia, Qatar. It's going to be an outlier because nobody's ever raced there before.
Yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen's already said, I think we're here for the show more than the racing.
No.
Which is...
Can't wait for the sprint race in Vegas next year.
But the biggest thing for me will be the temperature. You know, I mean, I'm not sure what the season average in terms of temperature is, but it's certainly going to be nowhere near the temperatures we are expected. Of course, I'm saying expecting. It could be totally different when we get there, but everyone is saying it's going to be chilly. So that's going to play a part, you know, with the tyres. They already struggle with the degradation, but it's the cold graining that you've got to try and manage when you get to the places where it is particularly cold. The warm-up's going to be even more important than it has been. They've got the use of tyre wars, but as soon as they come off and they touch that cold ground at a circuit that they've got no experience of racing on, who knows, maybe Max won't make it into Q2.
God, is that where we're at?
Right, let's clip that, and then if it happens.
Love it. Right, I've heard a worrying rumour just before we finish that you don't do driver of the day anymore. Is that right?
We sort of ebb and flow, I think.
Okay, let's ebb.
Well, okay.
Alonso.
Yeah. Oh, you can't.
I knew you were going to say Alonso. That's why I said it first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Alonso. No, Norris was brilliant, but Alonso for saving the race and the enjoyment of it at the end for me. What about you, Jen?
That's 3 all in. I'm going Alonso as well. The wily old fox did it again.
Still got it.
Exactly. Thank you so much for listening. Join us again in 2 weeks' time when it's Vegas, baby. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.